The night was silent, yet the woman's heart throbbed with anxiety. The shadows of poverty had settled into her home since her husband, one of the prophet's disciples, had departed this life. He was a God-fearing man, faithful to his ministry, but his death had left a trail of uncertainty. Like many families of that era, resources were scarce, and now an unpayable debt loomed over her like an impending storm. The creditors showed no mercy. The law allowed for her children to be taken as payment, becoming servants to settle their father's debts. Her 2 children, her most precious possession, were about to be torn from her arms. Despair, agony, a bleak future. Then, amidst the pain, a flicker of hope emerged. The widow resolved to seek help where she knew she would find succor, the lips of a prophet of God. Elisha, the man of God, listened attentively to her plea. The woman's weary eyes reflected fear and uncertainty, but also a flame of faith that had not yet been extinguished. The widow was desperate. Her heart quickened each time she recalled the creditor's harsh words. "If you cannot repay the debt, we will take your children as slaves." The threat hung over her home like an unrelenting shadow. An anguish consumed her soul. Her husband, a faithful servant of God, had passed away, leaving her alone to confront an impossible situation. Money was scarce, resources practically non-existent, and time was running against her. With no recourse, the widow did what any person of faith would do. She sought help from the prophet of God. Elisha, a man bearing the Lord's presence, heard her cry, and instead of offering an immediate solution, posed an unexpected question. "What do you have in your home?" The widow hesitated. The question caught her off guard. Her first impulse was to reply, "Nothing." After all, in her mind, she had already assessed and dismissed every possible solution, but after a moment's reflection, she remembered a small jar of oil forgotten in a corner of the house. "I only have a little oil," she said, almost unable to believe that something so insignificant could be relevant to her plight. Elisha's question was not random. He sought to make the widow see something often overlooked, the potential within what we already possess. How often do we look at our lives and see only scarcity? We focus on a lack of money, missed opportunities, limited resources, and forget that God has already placed something in our hands. We often undervalue what we possess because we're too preoccupied, lamenting what we've lost, or desiring what we haven't yet obtained. Elijah's question resonates to this day, echoing as a call for reflection. What do you have at home? What has God already placed in your life that can be used for a miracle? The widow's response reveals a common pattern in many lives, a tendency to minimize the value of what they possess. The little remaining oil in her home was almost insignificant. In human eyes, but in God's eyes, it was the key to supernatural provision. This applies to us too. Perhaps you have a talent you've never appreciated, an idea you've consistently dismissed, a connection you've underestimated. Your solution might already exist, but your limited vision hasn't yet recognized it. God doesn't require something grandiose to work a miracle. He simply needs something available. The widow's meager oil was sufficient for God to manifest His glory. What appeared small in human eyes was substantial enough for divine provision. The widow faced a seemingly insurmountable predicament. Her husband, a disciple of the prophets, had died, leaving debts she couldn't repay. Now, creditors stood at her doorstep, poised to take her children as payment. Her heart was burdened, her home weighed down by anguish, and her eyes desperately sought a way out. It was then that she sought out Elijah, the man of God, hoping to find a divine solution to her crisis. Elijah, upon hearing this woman's plight, didn't immediately offer a magical solution or an external resource. Instead, he posed a profound question. The widow, still consumed by despair, responded almost nonchalantly, Your servant has nothing in her house but a jar of oil." She viewed this small amount of oil as insignificant, incapable of resolving her problem, but Elijah saw beyond. He perceived not just the jar, but the potential miracle God was about to perform. The prophet's reply carried a profound lesson. He didn't instruct the widow to seek money, negotiate with the creditors, or solicit financial aid. Instead, he issued a seemingly simple yet spiritually profound command. "Go, borrow empty vessels from all your neighbors. Don't be sparing in the number." What sort of strategy was this? How could empty containers relate to resolving her crisis? Nevertheless, without question, the widow obeyed. She traversed the streets, knocking on doors, requesting borrowed vessels. From house to house, she collected every available container, carrying them back to her home. Perhaps some neighbors found her request unusual, perhaps others hesitated before lending their vessels, but the woman persevered, gathering as many as possible. Herein lies a potent principle: God can only fill that which is empty. The widow needed to create space to receive divine provision. Had she possessed only one vessel, she would have received only enough oil to fill it. But the more vessels she brought, the more oil flowed forth. This instruction from Elisha teaches us that often the magnitude of the miracle we experience isn't determined by God, but by our willingness to create space to receive it. If we are constrained by our lack of faith, apprehension, or complacency, we might end up experiencing less than God intends to bestow upon us. How many times do we petition God for a blessing, yet fail to prepare ourselves to receive it? We pray for opportunities, but don't equip ourselves. We ask for growth, but don't make room for it. Elisha's strategy reminds us that a miracle only occurs where there is receptivity. After collecting the vessels, Elisha issued another crucial order. "Then go in, shut the door upon yourself and your sons, and pour oil into all those vessels, and set aside what is full." The widow entered her home, closed the door, and together, with her sons, began pouring the oil, and then something extraordinary occurred. The oil never ceased flowing. Each vessel she filled seemed immediately replaced by another. The oil continued to multiply, filling every available container. She realized the extent of the miracle was directly correlated to the number of vessels she had brought. When the last vessel was filled, the oil stopped, not because God had run out of resources, but because no further space was available. Upon seeing all the vessels brimming, the widow rushed to Elisha and recounted what had transpired. The prophet then declared, "Go, sell the olive oil, settle your debt, and you and your children shall live from the remainder." With the miracle complete, not only was the debt extinguished, but sufficient sustenance remained to secure the family's livelihood. What began as a moment of despair concluded in provision, honor, and deliverance. This story is not merely about olive oil, it is about faith, obedience, and divine provision. Perhaps today you are surrounded by troubles, bills, anxieties, or uncertainties. Perhaps you possess only a small measure of oil, a talent, a narrow opportunity, a strength that seems inadequate, yet God intends to utilize precisely that to accomplish the impossible. Just as the widow had to gather her vessels and close the door to witness the miracle, you too must take the initial step of faith. God multiplies what we have when we are willing to surrender and act. The question is, are you acting? If this message resonated with you, comment below with the word "I will trust" and share it with someone who needs hope today. And remember to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and follow for other messages designed to strengthen your faith and renew your hope. May God bless you with vessels overflowing with peace, direction, and provision. The miracle has commenced. Now, it depends on how many vessels you bring forth.